Exactly. Right, my loves. Tonight's practice is a sequence that we and you, me and you, have not done together before. It's going to be a little bit interesting. You're going to either love it or loathe it. But hey, it'd be interesting to see what your reaction is at the end. Um, let me pin this actually. Okay. So know that I've seen you. If I've not said hi to you directly, thank you for coming to practice. Well done for being here again. And it's my pleasure to teach you. I love teaching on these yin classes with you guys every week. So the theme for tonight is wisdom, because we're moving out of the winter time of year and moving through this phasey, fuzzy time where winter transitions into spring. And as you know, the Chinese 5 element system that I follow has a fifth element, has a fifth season. And that season is this fifth one is to mark this passage where one season blends into the next one, which can be a little bit of a rocky time. It's now, I find, and then it's also the particularly strong one is the summer moving into autumn. That one is always quite awkward. So so we're saying goodbye to winter. Okay, we're beginning to leave winter. Remember, winter is the element of water. Water always tries to find the lowest depths that it can get to. It likes to be still and calm, but it can also be rocky and powerful and awe-inspiring, really. So it has that potential, doesn't it? It has that stored nature, like winter, isn't it? Winter, when we retreat in, we hibernate. It's where we build those reserves of potential. Anyway, the virtue of the water element is wisdom. The thing which defeats the virtue is fear. And we talk about fear quite a lot with the water element and the kidneys, because when we have fright, it can affect the way our kidneys function. But the way to undo the fright is to stick in the wisdom, stay on the path, the wisdom path. So that's what tonight's theme is going to be about. And because of that, the sequence that I have designed is in such a way that it's going to test your inner wisdom and your ability to trust, to stay safe, to adapt, etc., etc. But that will all become clear in a little while's time. So for now, just find a comfortable seat, please. But if you're called to lie down and you want to spend these first few minutes of breath work in a lying position, that's okay. I'm going to join you on my mat. Okay. So letting the hands either rest on your lap or on your knees. You can have palms up to uplift, palms down to ground, palms to the center to feel and find your center. Sorry, I have a little bit of hiccups going on. Okay. Like shutters against a window, can you close down your eyelids? Even if they're not quite fully closed and you're gazing downwards at the ground in front of you. Take a deep breath in and notice where your eyeballs are. Sometimes when we're very busy and we've got a lot going on in our worlds, sometimes the eyes feel like they're about to kind of pop out of the eye sockets. I am exaggerating a little bit, but you know there's certain types of faces where the eyes are really kind of bulging. They look like they're going to fall out of the socket. Right now, with your eyes closed, can you feel whether your eyeballs are slightly protruding. And can you take them backwards? Can you soften the eyeballs? Soften the muscles around the eye sockets as well. Now continue to breathe through your nose. Last week's practice had a lot of breath work. If you're familiar, I'd like you to take Ujjayi breath now. That's the breath where you slightly tighten the back of the throat. You narrow the passageway that the air moves along. In your breath, your breathing sounds faintly like the sound of a seashell up against your ear. Listen to the sound your breath makes. Be aware of the tempo of the breath. Even of the temperature of your breath. Enjoy the smooth, soothing sound and nature of your breath. And know that this is for you to come back to at any stage in tonight's practice. Right, last breath. Begin to blink open your eyes. Become aware of the room that you are in once again. And then we're preparing for our first pose. All of our poses tonight are following a sequential pattern. You're going to start in child's pose, and then we're going to continue the theme of rounding the spine, flexing the spine, and progressively get to deeper and deeper shapes. For now, just for pose number 1, I'd like you to come into child's pose. Child's pose could be traditionally practiced, feet together, knees together, hands round by the feet, head low towards the ground. But equally, it can be any other variation. So it could be knees wide and arms forwards. It could be with your bolster in front of you for a much more restorative and comforting practice. And this one's especially nice if you're a little bit bunged up at the moment and you want to keep the head fairly elevated. Okay. So we'll pause here. We'll take some time to settle and to use any props to help you be even more comfortable. Slow the breath down just as you did before. And use Ujjayi breath to help you become even more relaxed. Enjoy this rounded shape to your spine. Noticing where in your body it feels easy to be here, and where perhaps along your spine is a little bit more challenged. I want you to observe this now at this stage in the practice so that you can honor your own body by adapting your practice with kindness. Take one or two more breaths here, please. And softly release and come into a position of your choice. But I'd suggest one that allows you to relax your legs and stretch your legs out. Let everything soften. Feel yourself sinking into the deepest depths of your body as gravity draws you into your mat. Okay, so take 1 or 2 more breaths. All right. Now, from here, just have a look at the screen so that you can decide what you want to do. The next pose is a seated one, but if you don't like what I'm offering, you can practice Happy Baby instead, which is a lying pose. Chuck that over there. Right. So I'm going to suggest that you need something to sit on, and that something could easily be the tip of your bolster, or it could be a brick. So you decide whichever one is going to give you the most support versus the most comfort. You're then going to sit on it with the legs wide like this. So similar to what we were practicing the other day, similar to frog pose, but this is called squat in yin. So this is the squat pose. You can do this without the bolster underneath the bottom. It's fine. You just literally are squatting. So if you like a squat position, if that comes naturally to you, then feel free to ditch this seat underneath. So this is quite straightforward. If you're not comfortable with the legs here like this, they can be like this, they can be like this. Honestly, this part, the hippie bit, is the bonus. Because remember, tonight's practice is all about flexion. So if I turn to the side, so you can kind of see, I've still got my knees wide. I'm going to put my hands onto the back of my head. I'm going to let the elbows fold forwards, and I'm rounding the back of my body as much as I can. Particularly, the stretch is going to be felt into the neck, and I will suggest that maybe you just keep your hands on the back of your head for the first minute of the pose rather than the whole time that we're going to be here. Okay. If you don't like this particular pose, then the alternative is this one. Okay, it's not got quite the same roundedness for the spine. It's a bit more hip centered, but it does at least give you an alternative to practice. You can rest your elbows onto your knees, but I would suggest that the elbows hang into the center space if possible, just so that now you can work with your breath to try to round the spine. There is, of course, the option to bend the knees and just to hug them like this. And that would be a very nice alternative to the squat position. Okay. All right, so you've been here for 1 minute. If you want to take the hands off the head, you can. But equally, if you want to leave them on your head, that's fine too. Yes, you are looking for this lengthened feel, but I want you to be aware that because the poses are staying within the same part of the body, the same functional part of the body, then we've got to be mindful that we don't want to push it. Remember the yin, the edge of the yin. Okay. Breathe along the back of your body. Whether your in-breath rides up your spine or down is up to you. But have one phase of the breath moving along and upwards, and the other phase of the breath moving downwards. Think about the breath as washing the spine clear and allowing the kidneys to be filtered of toxins. We use our yin practice to gain clarity. Just as water becomes clear when it's able to be still, so do our minds. They gain clarity when we embrace stillness. It is this practice that allows us to tap into the still state of being. And I think that this offers us a chance to enhance our wisdom state of being. But more on that in a moment. Gently take one last breath. And then allow the body to slowly remember that you're going to start to feel very stiff and quite fragile, especially when we work the spine and the ligaments that surround the spine. So come out very, very slowly, and I'm going to suggest that you lie down now just to offer the rest to your joints, to your bones. Okay, we'll stay here for about 1 minute. Okay. So we move on to our third pose. Third pose again is a seated one, your last seated one. And for that, you can take the bolster underneath the legs if you want to. You're then allowing the body to round a little bit more deeply, perhaps, than it was previously. So we use the shape of the legs over the bolster to rest against where possible. However, if you want a hamstring stretch and you want to have your legs out straight and you want to round without props, that's okay too. All right. So let yourself roll forwards. And know always that if you need to come out of this shape because it's got too much, you've been in the pose for enough time, or if you're experiencing any unwanted sensations like tingling, numbness in your hands, your feet, particularly in this pose, then I'd like you to make sure that you come out, because you've got to trust this inner knowing of whether or not the pose is doing and giving to you what you need. If it's taking away from you, then that's not going to be any good. The poses have got to give. They've got to nourish, they've got to heal, they've got to offer something. Now, obviously, you come to class in a state of unknownness. You don't know what you're going to be offered week after week after week. That comfort in being in the unknown and trusting whatever whatever you are offered, that's faith. Trust that embraces the unknown. And over time, as we keep trusting in the unknown, even when the experience is negative or the outcome isn't as good as we want it to be, often these experiences lead to better understanding. And our wisdom grows. And for most of us, that will take us the majority of our lifetime. So well done. Take a couple of more breaths here. And then softly release. Our next pose will be a lying down one. So therefore, if you want to rest lying down, know that you don't have to get back up again. But you might want to keep your bolster nearby or a cushion nearby so that you can reach it easily. Let's take a rest. Okay, so last few breaths. Okay. So the next pose is happy baby, but with the hips elevated. For that, you can bend your knees, lift your hips, and slide something underneath them. It doesn't have to be the bolster, it can be a brick, it can be a cushion, it can be a folded up blanket. You don't have to have something as high as this. Just go with what feels manageable for your body. Once you've got your hips elevated, the knees are going to bend and you're bringing them in towards your chest. So we've kind of flipped our forward folds upside down. And now we're using gravity slightly differently. We're using also the heaviness of the legs themselves, just to create a little bit more sense of flexion. You can do a couple of things. You can reach for your feet and hold on to them. You can prayer the feet, so bring the soles of the feet together with the knees out wide. Or you could just simply wrap your hands around the backs of your thighs and pull the thighs a little bit closer in towards your chest. So whichever version you're going to go for, try to have the hips elevated if you can. And yes, you've got your shoulders on the floor, your head on the floor, so make sure that they're really comfortable. Okay. So we've talked about being with the unknown and being comfortable with the unknown, and then that leads to becoming wise. The opposite, when we react to the unknown in a less favourable way, it creates fear. And fear is the enemy of water, or of, you got to, you can't be afraid in water, can you? Otherwise it will just consume you. If you think about, I don't know if you've ever swam on a beach. I remember swimming in the ocean in Sri Lanka. I was there, it was my first trip there, and the sea is just sometimes so mesmerizing. The waves are just powerful and strong, and I wanted to be in this water. And it was in Marissa, which is a very popular tourist beach. And there were actually lifeguards, and there was 2 flags up so that you knew exactly the point where it was safe to swim. However, there were hundreds of people in the water. It was this tiny little narrow passageway that swimming was permitted. And I wanted to be in, I went in, and I was pummeled by these waves. It was one of the most exhilarating things. And you had to let go of the fear. And obviously you've got to respect the water and be safe in it. But there were a couple of moments, I'm not going to lie, where I was just so whacked by these waves, and I was right under the water, and it kind of takes your breath away, doesn't it? Um, so yeah, so that's yeah, we have to respect water a lot. Anyway, going back to fear. So fear is our reaction to the unknown. Now, what happens is when we go into that fearful place, it erodes the wisdom. So we can't let fear dominate. If we can learn to manage it, we can then transform it back into wisdom. And that allows us to trust in life's flow rather than resist it. Okay, so last couple of breaths, please. and then softly releasing. You're staying in this rough position, but you might want to slip the support out maybe, or just bring the feet to the floor with the legs supported. And just stay still for a moment, let the spine rest. Okay. So our final flexion pose. We've gone from child's pose into squat, into caterpillar to happy baby. And now we're coming into snail pose. And this isn't one that I teach you guys very often because it is a bit challenging. And therefore you can always swap this out and do something else if you want to. Now you can keep a bolster near or some kind of block if you like. I think I'll be all right. If I do this, you'll get the idea. So this could be your optional pose, but snail pose is essentially this. And you might rest your hands here, or you can drag your support a little bit closer. And the idea is that you've got this lovely kind of rounded shape. It's not quite halasana, it's not quite plow pose. You can bring your arms towards your feet if you like. You can hold on to your feet. You could wrap your hands around your legs. So there's loads and loads of ways to practice this, but this is probably the strongest pose. Well, it is the strongest pose of all of them. So very deep flexion, lots of gravity going on here, big stretch for the neck, quite a lot going on in the shoulders. So if you know this isn't your cup of tea, take a slightly modified version so it's a bit lesser. So your hips are not so high, your legs are not so low to the ground. Or you could take bamboo garden if you like. Okay, so loads and loads of ways to play with this. Even if you come into the pose and you only stay for a minute or so and you want to come out, you know that there are those variations there for you to have a little play with. Okay, but just see, feel, trust in the unknown, which for some, it might be that this pose represents that unknownness, and that every time we attempt to pose, we're going to be presented with some sensations and experiences. And it's what we do with those as we're on this path to trust, this path of faithfulness. Trust in the inner light of your being. This for me is becomes very instinctual, and it's beyond consciousness, it's beyond our conscious awareness, because wisdom is that deep inner knowing that lies well beyond conscious thought. And for me, it's the instinctualness is sometimes you just know, isn't it? You know an answer to something, you have a reaction towards an event, you might be presented with the pose and you just know it's not going to be, in your bones, don't you? And that's where our wisdom lies. There's the essence of our being stored deep in the bones. And we say, don't we, about people that they've got wise bones. Okay, so last couple of breaths. And then I would suggest you come out of this shape ever so slowly. Try not to clatter back down with your legs or your feet, but ever so slowly. Maybe the bolster is pushed to the back of your knees and you rest with your legs supported. Take your time because there is that sense of fragility. Allow your bones to sink, to feel that deep heaviness. Okay, the last couple of breaths. And again, your final yin pose doesn't require a lot of movement, hopefully. You could, if you feel like you need it because your body has had enough, then by all means stay here like this. But if you want to something to kind of stretch you out the other way ever so slightly, then you can pick up your hips, pull the bolster back underneath you, and then maybe either rest with the knees bent or slide the legs away. And there is also true the option to take the arms alongside the ears if you want, if you didn't get the arm stretch in the previous shape. Obviously put something less underneath the hips if this feels too high. Just put a cushion or a folded blanket or something instead. You've done a lot where you've creased up the front of your body. So this offers you that little stretch out. In Taoism, it's suggested that true wisdom comes from flowing with nature rather than forcing outcomes. And I very much think that yin yoga embodies this practice, helping us surrender, trust, and find wisdom in all moments. Okay, so you may want to release this shape now. Maybe bend the knees and slide whatever was underneath you out, and to catch the back of the knees again is fine, because here's where you're going to stay for the remainder of the practice tonight. For now, as you settle into your last experience of stillness for tonight's practice, can you sense your bones dropping? Notice your breath. There's no need to change anything. Just notice. Now, draw in the breath through your feet and your legs and up deep into your abdomen. Allow the breath to swell there. Notice your thoughts. Let them come and go as waves. Beneath the choppy thoughts lies a sea of tranquility, a place within that is filled with wisdom. Float in this still, quiet ocean beneath the conscious mind. Be the observer of the waves above you. As you lie here, feel yourself relax more fully. Find peace and contentment within yourself. Let it wash through you and over you. Okay, so allow yourself to drift back up to the surface. Take deeper breaths. And slowly begin to be aware of your body. Wiggle fingers and toes. Turn your head side to side. Maybe a stretch out if one calls to you. And then you can bend your knees, rolling yourself gently over to one side as you carefully come around and up to sit. Okay. So just sit for a moment, just sit, hands into your lap. I can be very guilty in our yoga practices of favouring back bends because I know through our habitual posture that actually back bends are so called for in our spine. Our spine often is crying out for them because we're too rounded, we're too folded. But tonight you've been offered the opposite, that opportunity to really go deep and find the full length of stretch along the back of your body. And that's necessary too, because often when we're hunched forwards in our habitual everyday postures, we're in an in-between state where we're not quite fully folded, but not quite neutral either. So this practice tonight is that chance for you to really go into those spaces. And I hope now that when you're sitting upright, you can really perhaps feel the benefit that that's going to give your spine. Okay, let's finish together. Let's take fingertips out wide. On an inhalation, raise the arms up above your head and let your palms gently meet. And softly bring the hands down to rest in front of your heart space. Thank you so much for coming to practice with me this evening. Namaste to you all. And gradually come back up. Well done.